This is Dennis Harabin, and I'm excited to be here today with Robert Muhammad, and we're discussing April's 2019 expert session in what is new and where is financial aid heading. Robert is an expert, and if you listen to the session one on the basics about insider tips to financial aid, you'll get the detailed background on Robert and why this is a great session and worth your time. So in this session, Robert, wanted to talk to you a little bit more about where you feel financial aid is heading. But before we do, I just wanted to congratulate you. I understand you are the president of the North Carolina Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators and had a chance to head to Washington. Is that true?
That is true. That is true. My term starts on July 1st. I'm excited. We have a lot of good things planned. Got a chance to visit the Hill and talk to some representatives of some of our national politicians. And I think we're going to have a good year. I'm very excited to see where we're going to take the cast over the next year and a half.
Excellent, excellent. So I know financial aid is always changing. What are the important changes that people should be aware of for 2019 currently?
Well, this year, we were able to, as of 1819 and going into 1920, we now are able to have folks give us, or students and parents submit to us, signed tax returns, which for about 3 or 4 years prior to, or 4 or 5 years prior to, students would have to request for a tax return transcript, and it may be something that was difficult to receive from the IRS. All IRS offices were not on the same page, so students are getting the runaround, parents were frustrated. So being able to turn in a signed tax document eases some of the pressure when it comes to a federal process called verification, which is typically anywhere from about 22 to about 33% of the student population may be chosen for verification. So it does make it easier for some folks.
Excellent, excellent. And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but where do you feel financial aid is heading in the future?
I think we're going to have more, have states return to putting or providing more opportunities for their students in their institutions. At one point, states had more financial or physical skin in the game. And over the course of the last 15, 20 years, you've seen state dollars begin to dry up. And as a result, you see cost creep up for students and parents. And it's so cost prohibitive now in some respects. So I think states have got to have more skin in the game. I think there needs to be some different approaches when it comes to need-based aid from a federal standpoint. Certainly Pell Grant is helpful, but you just don't have the overall funding for that student who has the most need. And at the same time, you need to find ways in which to help the middle income family who's squeezed because they don't fit it in a perfectly round peg in a round hole. So you have to find a way to help them with some relief as well. And then I think institutions have to have more skin in the game. I think institutions have to look at what it is in order not only to bring a student to the university, but help them matriculate, help them be retained, help them graduate, and ultimately help them where physically possible to keep some of the cost so they're not just outlandish. Usually a student will see anywhere from 5 to 6 up to maybe 9% increase year over year with the cost of attendance. And that's tuition fees, room, board, books, miscellaneous, and travel. And so you think about where you are your 4th year, you've seen a jump. And by the time you're ready to graduate, you're probably paying another $500 or $600 above what you started out, or maybe more. Where's the funding coming from?
Exactly, exactly. And as far as going in, what are your thoughts on the future of the ISAs or some of those income share arrangements?
I think some schools see them as somewhat of an automatic fix because students are able to take care of the payments on the back end as their income increases. But in some ways, or just in the most general sense, it's still a loan. So is it better to have a loan that is backed by the federal government that you have more controls around? Or do you want to have a loan that's based on the institution? And if you go into more than one institution that has the ISA as an opportunity, will you then have a way to consolidate? Probably not. So you're going to have all these different types of payment opportunities. And I would think schools would probably be better served to find a way to have skin in the game financially versus this type of opportunity. I think there are ways that they can take funding from perhaps housing or meal opportunities or meal plans, or maybe even athletics, and put some of that funding into opportunities for grants or scholarships for students, and to help drive down some of the costs versus something that would be a strictly ISA opportunity.
What are your thoughts about the alternative income streams beyond tuition for schools and universities? I know a lot of them have spent a fortune building these beautiful buildings and building these beautiful campuses, as far as leveraging other ways to take those assets and turn them into revenue producing to get back to making it affordable for kids to actually attend school.
Well, I think one of the things that's occurred is that we have to look to see exactly what type of funding is really coming back to help with the academic side of the house. You have opportunities for grants, you have opportunities for athletics and other projects, but how much is really coming back to help defray the cost for the student or to support academic programs? One thing we do very well, we will create a nice student center with a bowling alley or a movie theater or a beauty salon, or whatever the case may be. And those are nice amenities, but it may be a way in which to take some of that funding and put it somewhere else where students actually see the benefit on their cost of immediate cost of return of their investment. I think we're going to have to see a specific change as how we approach higher education, because right now we are looking at it as if we build it, they'll come. We're throwing processes out there. But we see now a trend, and by 2025, you're going to have fewer freshmen available to come to us because people stopped having children in 2007 during the recession. And you have some students who just don't believe in the American dream any longer. They don't see the need to get a 4-year degree. So maybe vocational schools have to be looked at again. So I think we have to have a tiered and a strategic approach versus all in for one thing, because our student demographics are shifting and we have to be nimble enough to shift with them.
I believe that was a big piece of what we discussed down in Austin. I know in session 1, we talked about how you're the driver behind Project Scholarship and where it came from. And part of that motivation was your thought it's not us versus them and the different schools and colleges and universities. It's all of us helping them, and how you could each work together, and how, again, college universities probably should be a monopoly, and there really should only be so many. They should work together. And if I'd talk a little bit more about some of the things you're doing in North Carolina to help with that.
Well, we're trying to, for instance, in Forsyth County, where Winston-Salem is, where I live, we're trying to work with the school system to help the school system not just have a student complete a FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, but also have an awardable FAFSA. So make sure that the document is good, and no matter where the student goes, whether they come to us or they go to another school, they can have that instrument available to start school. We're trying to find ways to reduce the verification melt. So we have students who will get discouraged because they don't know how to get the tax return we talked about. They don't feel comfortable asking mom and dad for tax information. They don't know if they can be considered perhaps independent based on circumstance. And so they have every intention to go to school in May, and come August, they no longer see that opportunity. And so we're trying to figure out ways to offset the melt, be it verification, be it a reject code, being a student who just doesn't feel like he or she is college material. But we're also trying to have conversations. I think this is happening more and more nationally, how we can have conversations, universities with community college, have the relationships. So I may not have a large freshman class coming in. Maybe I reduce my freshman class by 30%. And some schools will say, oh my gosh, why? But if I can make up that 30% with a strong sophomore class from the community college, or a strong junior class from the community college, I then still have the same number of students. I may have to reassess my budgets and reassess my housing plan and my meal plans based on the freshman expectations or what have you. But ultimately, I'm going to have a more robust product that I offer to more people. And I think one of the other things we have to look at some point down the road, and I don't know why more schools don't look at it, is out of the door pricing. There should be some way I could have a conversation about what the cost for education would be 4 years in. And where that means I have a way in which I strategically look at housing and meals and tuition and come up with projected costs and say, out of the door, instead of you paying $65,000, we're going to let you actually be able to do this for $60,000. But I'm able to project what the success rate of students. That $5,000 loss ultimately will be a gain because I'm retaining students and I'm building my brand, and my brand is speaking about the quality of my education.
Excellent. Excellent. I agree. Well, that's why, again, I think you're one of the leaders in this space for sure. And I appreciate you taking the time here to talk to us about where you feel financial aid is going. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.